welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Truth Defender podcast. We're coming to you from the greatest country in the world, deep in the heart of the Lone Star State, Dallas, Texas. I'm your host, Paul Aguilar, and you guys can go ahead and please follow us on Twitter. You guys can find us there at Defender Podcast, as well as Instagram at Truth Defender Podcast. If you guys also have any kind of questions or guests or topic recommendations, you can go ahead and email us at thetruthDefender1776@gmail.com. And without further ado, we have our next guest coming up, Tony and Ingrid Durant of Sasquatch Journey, are a happily married couple who were both fans of the Bigfoot TV series. While searching through YouTube for similar shows, they found channels that featured structures much like Tony had seen while hiking the Rockies. Thinking this would be a way to get off the couch on the weekends, they went back to these areas and so began their Sasquatch journey. If you guys haven't come across their YouTube channel before, you guys should definitely check it out. They also have a Facebook page titled Bigfoot Journey, Sasquatch Journey as well. I'm sorry. Can you guys please let them know where they can find you? Maybe like on Twitter and Instagram as well.
Twitter, it's Sasquatch Journey 1. Okay. We have a Facebook page and a Facebook group. They're both under Sasquatch Journey. And then YouTube channel is Sasquatch Journey. Keep things simple.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so you guys put that together back in 2011, was that right? Something like that?
Actually, yeah, the YouTube channel was the first thing. We put it together back in August of 2018.
Okay.
I had another video on there back from 2011, but that's when that was my fishing journey.
Okay. No, yeah, no worries.
Yeah, you can watch that video, but it won't make any sense to anybody who doesn't know the guy.
It was kind of a tribute to a fellow fisherman that we put together and just put on YouTube for our fishing forum that we had.
He always wanted to be a calendar girl, so that's
And there you go. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I guess the first time you guys were out there really trying to look for Sasquatch, when, did that come because you guys were just out there hiking and you just kind of noticed what was going on out there? Or did you guys have any kind of interest in Sasquatch before that?
Yeah, actually, both of us have always had an interest in Sasquatch.
Right.
We used to watch the show Finding Bigfoot, even though we knew that it was Hollywood.
Right.
Kind of fell in love with Bobo and Cliff, and then when they canceled the show, kind of going through DTs and stuff. So went on YouTube and was looking for back episodes.
Right.
But on YouTube, all these other sites started popping up with the structures and the different research and stuff. And so I started watching those off on my own. And there was one channel from right here in Colorado, and the structures that he was showing, we had never seen anything on tree structures before.
Right.
And so I called Ingrid over and I said, look at this stuff. I've seen this before when out hiking and camping. And she asked where, and I told her, and so I told her, I said, we'll go up there and just give it a look-see and see what happens. And that started the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so out here, so like I mentioned before, I'm sitting here in Dallas, Texas, so we don't really have any kind of mountain ranges whatsoever. It's just all flat area. So we don't really get too many stories about Sasquatch or Bigfoot or whatever that I've ever heard of. I'm originally from West Texas in El Paso, but so there's definitely nothing that I can recall ever hearing growing up or any kind of stories around here, unless you go to like the border of Louisiana and Texas, then you kind of hear more of that. But you guys are right there by the Rockies, so you guys climb up and down them mountain ranges every weekend. So I mean, that would be like the main spots where you would find all of that. But like I said, we don't have anything that I can ever recall growing up around here. You just hear kind of stories like out in the desert of like weird creatures, things like that, but nothing about Sasquatch or any kind of Bigfoot related stories. Now obviously you go more up north, then you hear all these different stories and stuff like that, but I've never been Sasquatch hunting. I've never seen anything kind of closely related to any of that, which is kind of a bummer because I would really love to go out there and see, not hope that I can see one. I mean, obviously that would be like the biggest thing, but just to kind of go out there hunting and looking around for things, that would be pretty awesome. So you guys have your spot out there. I won't say where it is, obviously, but do you guys just kind of hike the same areas mostly, or do you guys kind of expand the area a little more? How does that come lately?
We've actually got a few areas. We didn't want to just go to one area and start finding all this stuff that looked out of the normal. We wanted to expand and go to other areas to see if it broadened the research any.
Right.
And what we did find is about 3 different areas that we usually go to. We're finding the same stuff. And what's funny is that we watch other researchers' channels, and from Pennsylvania to Montana to California to even East Texas, they're finding all the exact same stuff that we're finding right here in Colorado.
Right.
And we generally hike off trail. I mean, we'll follow a trail for like the first 1/10 of a mile, and then we will break completely off trail.
Yeah,
Right.
we're bushwhacking it from the word go, and at our age, it's a little bit tough.
Yeah, we look at each other and like, what are we doing?
Yeah, definitely going up those hills. It's rough out there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So do you guys go out there? I mean, I see you guys out there during the day. Do you guys go out there at night at all, or do you any of that kind of stuff?
At nighttime, what we do is on camping trips.
Okay.
We'll pick, like in the area that we're at now, we've got basically 3 areas. We've stayed in this area where is our main area where we went yesterday. We've stayed there a couple times now, and just start a fire or something, or sit outside in the lights.
Because they're curious. They'll come to you.
They come to you. You don't have to call them. These guys that go out and do the calls and stuff, that's just basically, some of them are pretty hokey. But the other researchers that we do go out with, they'll do a couple calls just to let them know that they're there.
Right.
Even though they know they're there, it's to let them know who you are that's there. And then from there, they'll come in, they'll say, oh, James is back,
Right,
so
right.
let's go down and see, give them a call back, and just curious to see, they're curious to see what we're doing as much as we're curious to find the truth about them.
Right.
So that's what we do. Just, we don't go hiking at night.
No.
Yeah.
Here in the high Rockies, there's too many things out there like mountain lions. And
Right.
even though in Colorado we only have black bears, the male black bears can still be pretty vicious sometimes.
Yeah, we don't want to go looking for more trouble than we can handle.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, they want to get caught up in those bears out there. No, it's so I guess it's more like you mentioned, they know that you're out there, I remember hearing you guys speak about how they kind of trail you when you're walking out there. Maybe they're walking alongside you, like in the trees, things like that. Do you hear like them calling out to each other, like in the distance, or do you hear grunting, stuff like that when you guys are out there?
We have.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes when we'll be walking our trail,
right,
and we instantly get a vibe that we're being watched. Everybody gets that vibe, you're being watched.
And the spider sense goes off.
Yeah.
Right. Well, this spidey sense is a little different because it's a friendly vibe. And as you're walking, you'll hear something off in the distance walking also and making noise. But then when you stop, it stops. And we thought, okay, it's just the echo from our own steps. So we've kind of did something different in our steps and stuff.
Right.
And the steps that we're hearing doesn't match what we're doing. So we know it's something different. But then when you hear like a stick break and from up on the hill, and we didn't step on any sticks. And then we know that our senses are pretty correct. So
Yeah, there's something out there.
And then we got total proof that we were paralleled one time when Tony got hit in the back with a snowball.
yeah,
And there was nobody around, dead quiet. I mean, there was no snow in the trees. This was a hard-packed snowball, and he tells the story really well.
yeah. And then after I got hit, I could swear I heard some giggling off on the
Oh yeah.
and we were the only car in the whole parking lot.
It was pretty deep snow. It was just after a good snow in the Rocky Mountains. So we were going through, 10 to 14 inches
Yeah.
of powder. But it was later in the day, so all the snow had fallen off the trees from the wind already.
And it was melting pretty good.
Yeah, so it was a bright, sunny day.
And it had been in an area where we had researched in the past and found some tree structures that were built in the shape of a corral. There were fenced off areas and stuff. And this is in the middle of the woods. And I cannot figure why a human would go back there. Well, first, a human couldn't lift these big trees,
Right.
but they were stacked 3 and 4 tall. And like I said, in a corral shape and stuff. And we started thinking back, well, the American Indians, the Native Americans would do that too. And then herd the elk and the buffalo in, and
Right.
that was their hunting grounds. And so we're putting two to two together, and we come up with a theory that the Sasquatch possibly do the same thing, especially since we found elk remains near these corrals or elk tripping fences or whatever they are.
Yeah, like a full skull and spine.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, good pieces that a hunter would have taken away, or another carnivore opportunistic would have, shaken them separate or something. So this, some of them almost looked like they had been butchered.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, so you see that up real high. Is there any kind of waterways through there that you guys have that that you find similar things down there as well? Maybe they go fishing or whatever.
Yeah, in our main area, there's a creek. There's actually about 3 creeks that run kind of in a triangle around this area that we're at. And we have found packed down bedding areas down around in the trees off of the creek. One time that day, matter of fact, that I got hit, or the week before I got hit with the snowball. Right next to the creek bed, we found a whole pile of hair. There were no bones or anything, but it looked like elk or deer hair, and it was just kind of scattered throughout. And just different, we call trackways,
Right.
where we don't think they're everyday use game trails or anything because they're not rutted out. That's one of the ways that we tell game trail from like an elk trail. Elk kind of spread out in a way. They don't follow the same trail constantly like deer do.
Right.
And because a deer trail will basically be rutted out up here. And we find trails that are packed down. We call them Sasquatch highways.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And and they're always leading. These Sasquatch highways basically lead from one structure, and our way of research is we'll follow one structure that leads to another structure to another structure.
Right.
And we don't go out and like some of these other guys and do nothing but videos of tree structures here and tree structures there. Ours is just our journey on how we're trying to find them and stuff, and it's worked out. I mean,
we find stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I see. I was watching your guys' videos this past week, and so as far as structure wise, you see the zones like where they sleep. You can see like the bedding on the ground as well. As far as the corrals, things like that, what other kind of structures do you mostly see out there as well?
We see a lot of teepees, and they're different from like the normal ones that a Boy Scout would make, because number one, they're always built around a tree in the center.
Right.
So there's no ground space that it can actually be used for any kind of habitation. There's no room to lay down in it. They're generally too small for more than two or three people to get in, let alone lay down in it. And we call them sticks, but actually the tree limbs and tree portions that are used to build them they're too large for more than, I mean, you'd have to have a big group of people making these things.
Right.
And they're generally broken, not sawed. Some are cut, but we figure that Sasquatch is opportunistic. If you can see a cut piece of tree, you know, why not take it and use it?
Yeah, yeah.
And Tony has actually been plotting these on a GPS, and they generally follow just off of a ley line. So they follow like a power line in the earth, and they're not, you know, directly, you know, not completely straight line, but they only veer off just a little bit. So we can pretty much plot, if we find two, where about the next one will be. And it's proven pretty accurate.
Yeah, they're within 200 yards off of the ley line, actually within, about 200 yards.
And they're small enough that they can't be used for habitation. So we figure they've got some sort of spiritual connection, because of the feelings that you get when you're near one.
Right.
You know, some of them are totally old and dead, you know, nothing's been there for a long time. But if it's got any kind of active use, like when we pretty much saw it being built.
We watched it being built over a period of about 4 weeks. We kept going back.
And more sticks got added to it each time. And that one, the feeling when you walked in, it even registered on some of our electronic gauges, the electromagnetic field as you were going in. And it's just such a feeling of peace and security and serenity and happiness that, you know, so I'm thinking that they have to have some sort of spiritual purpose for them. I don't think they're habitations of any kind.
Yeah, it is odd. Yeah, because I mean, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and we haven't found a fire ring around any of them.
Yeah, they're
usually if it's for camping or bushcraft or something, they usually have a fire ring.
Right.
They've had a fire. We haven't found any that had a used fire ring. We did find one that had a fake fire ring in it. And other researchers feel, and as we do, that it's a fake fire ring because they're mimicking us.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
maybe to throw us off, so people will think, oh, a human made this, there's the fire ring.
Right.
Or, you know, I was going to say something else, but I forgot what it was. We also find some structure, you know, there's the classic X, you know, and then we'll find lean-tos, and we'll find really small ones that are just, you know, they've got to be some sort of communication between them that we don't understand. Or we could just have happened upon an artist's studio, and, you know, one of them's into the arts, because some of them are really intricately wound, you know, woven. And, oh yeah, on the teepees, none of them are, none of them offer any shelter from the climate. There's no, I mean, wind and rain can go right through it. And if somebody was going to build one to habitat, they would, you know, windproof it at least.
Right.
Oh, that's what I forgot about the teepees.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
we
crazy.
We find a lot of structure. I mean, just watch our videos. You'll see they come in all shapes and sizes.
Yeah, that's so I would say, as you guys are climbing throughout the hills out there, is do you guys see like a lot of pushed over trees? Is it like showing that someone actually pushed them down and it wasn't just, you know, the weather or anything like that?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that we do, is we try to debunk everything that we find.
Right.
Up here in the high Rockies, we do have like microbursts that'll come in, and it's like a mini tornado, and if it comes down and lands, you can always tell because the trees are just mangled and downed and stuff.
Right.
And one of the things when we do find these structures, we try to rule out the human aspect in them. We try to look at the root balls and the ground underneath the root balls to see if maybe it grew there.
Right.
Usually there'll be a hole And if there's not a hole, we kind of dig up because the compost will fill that hole in.
Okay.
But if it's still solid ground underneath that root ball that's up in the air,
Right.
there's no way that it actually would have came from that exact spot. So our feeling is that it was dragged in.
Okay.
So, and there'll usually be a bunch of them that doesn't look man-made. It looks out of normal
Right.
to us. And so that's what we're looking for, stuff that's out of the normal.
Huh. Yeah. Is it more trees? Is there like stones that are also carried in, or how does, or like large boulders in this case?
We find some very large rocks
Right.
placed on top of a stump, something that would take, 3 guys your size and age to get up there at
Right.
least. And then why would you do that?
Yeah. Oh,
And we find rock stacks
Well off the trail.
well off the trail. We found one rock stack here last month.
Right.
And unfortunately, it was at a rest stop, but it was off to the side and there's a creek running back behind. Well, last year we found actual footprints down in a bog area, but it was too wet that we couldn't pour because we took our plaster casting material with us. Right. But it was, the footsteps were just made that morning, had to have been just made that morning because they were starting to fill in with the silt and stuff. But at the beginning of this rest area, there was a big flat rock. And there was rocks stacked and not in a pyramid. These were stacked on top of each other. Right. And like 5 high, this one was. And then the top rock was kind of a flat rock and it was standing on its end, almost perpendicular up and down on the very top. And that took some real skill to do.
Right.
And where we go in the winter, it's not used a lot by people during the winter because it's relatively inaccessible. But we've got, a nice 4-wheel drive truck and Tony's great in the snow. So it's, while people had been by to use it, it's not a place where you'd want to spend a couple of hours stacking rocks.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's crazy. Now I can't even, so like you mentioned during the winter, I guess I would say, is there more of like a time of year where you see more activity going on, or is it just kind of constant yearly?
For us, we've actually found evidence throughout the season. Right. The one spot that we like to go to, our main spot, unfortunately, the road does get snowed in, so we can't get back to it most of the time.
Right.
And so we'll get as close as we can and we'll walk in. And it was last year we did find some footprints. And that was at the end of the season. There were still about 8 inches of snow on the ground. We did find some 15-inch footprints and some 6-inch footprints. And we followed, there's a lot of moose up there, a lot of elk. And we have followed some moose tracks one day, but the moose tracks all of a sudden got bigger. Yeah. And we've studied the tracks and stuff on trackers' websites. So we kind of know what we're looking at, but these foot tracks that we were looking at that turned bigger almost look like a moose track with a bare foot track over it. So it was like something was following and stepping in the moose tracks themselves.
Right. And
we put the question out on over the internet from other researchers: do Sasquatch follow in the snow elk and moose and bear prints? Because we thought, well, at first we thought, well, maybe it's a bear. Right. But there was no claws in it. And these were actually longer and thinner than a bear print.
And that would have had to have been a heck of a stride on that bear.
Yeah.
Because they were a good 5 feet apart. I mean, a person could not have done that. And, like moose, they'll step the front hoof and then the rear hoof will follow in that same track, just a little bit behind it.
Right.
And so that's why sometimes moose tracks can be confused for Sasquatch. And I think that's why Sasquatch might use them. They're the right length apart and they're the right size. And when you walk in the snow, don't you follow tracks already made?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And like I said, these prints were right on top of, because we followed the moose prints down a hill, and then like I said, they all of a sudden got longer and deeper, and we followed them for what, another 50 feet or so, and then all of a sudden the moose print started back up again, and the bigger, deeper prints kind of disappeared, and actually it was going over a tree, so we don't know if it might have stepped on a tree and veered off. But after we put the question out there, some researchers come back and said definitely they do follow in the footprints of other animals.
Right.
So that's what we feel. We got some pictures of it that were in one of our videos, but we feel that's what happened.
It's crazy that, to think that they actually think that way, so where they would want to cover their tracks just to make sure that nobody can tell what it is. That's just amazing to me. That's crazy. No, so you mentioned that. So like, have you ever had any kind of, so I was actually speaking with a gentleman by the name of Dark Waters. I don't know if you've ever heard of him on YouTube. So he tells a lot of stories about like paranormal, dogman, Bigfoot, stuff like that. And he had, I won't tell his story because he actually has a whole interview about it, but there was a story of Bigfoot that actually, multiple Bigfoot that had actually come out of the hills. I'm not exactly sure where it was, the story, but they were coming up to houses like at night. And he even believed, after speaking to the sheriff, I believe, and another individual who worked for one of the banks out there, that those particular Bigfoots had actually taken the family that lived in that house, because they were just gone. Like after they went into the house, there was everything was there as if that the people that had owned the house were there like 20 seconds ago, and they were just gone. And so there was a whole thing with the story. If anybody wants to go back and actually hear it, you can go to his YouTube channel at Dark Waters channel, and you can hear that story. It's a crazy story. We actually interviewed him. He told that story on our show as well. But it's just crazy. Have you guys ever been followed or anything like that? Say, I guess, back to the house or, things like that?
We live pretty far from our
Yeah.
research area, so they'd have to go about an hour and a half drive to get to our house.
Yeah,
so we haven't been followed home.
But while out camping,
right,
we have had them come right in up to the motorhome.
right.
Last year I was up with Connie Willis on her show, and Bobo from Finding Bigfoot was there also. He was with us, and we had a 30-foot motorhome.
Okay.
And so it was the second night, I believe, we had set up at a campsite,
right,
and was seeing eye shine through the trees and hearing some different noises out in the forest and stuff.
right.
Well, I had gone in and went to bed, lay down on the couch on the side, and Connie was up on the top bunk. And this was about 2:30 in the morning, if I'm not mistaken. But I had just fallen asleep. I was trying to sleep light so that I could hear stuff going on outside.
Right.
Bobo was in a tent farther out, and all of a sudden, about 2:30 in the morning, there was a ruckus. Something had slapped, bare palmed, the side of the motorhome right above my head, and and it was loud. It shook the stove because the stove was right there, and I sat up and yelled an expletive,
Right.
and Connie didn't even hear it.
Hmm.
Bobo was, like I said, he was about 25 feet away from the motorhome. He heard it, but he thought it was us inside.
Right.
And so that was no problem. And then 2 nights later, we had moved to another campsite about a mile down the road. And if the same thing didn't happen again. So yeah, it came in. And in that area, it's supposedly the same clan, because they can travel miles in
Right.
real fast. And this is a pretty active area up there where we were. But 2 nights, the side of the motorhome gets slapped, and it's a going thing up there. It happens all the time. And a lot of people, just regular campers, don't report it. There's been people actually pack up in the middle of the night after this stuff happens, and they leave.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we have found tents. Yeah, we have found abandoned tents out in the middle of the forest.
I bet.
And wondered, what's going on. And then you start looking, and the tent is just shredded here and there. But that could be a mountain lion trying to get to the food, or a bear or something. But why would somebody leave their sleeping bag, their packs, their tent,
A cooler,
and split?
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, that's what I would have done. But I mean, it's been a long time since I've actually gone any kind of camping. I mean, I did things here and there when I was in the military, but there was nothing like to go out there and just kind of stay for a weekend, things like that. But hearing things in the woods is kind of one of my ultimate fears. You have no idea what's out there. You're out there in the middle of nowhere, all by yourself. I mean, there could be anything out there in those trees. It could be, it could be Bigfoot, or it could just be regular animals, but the fact that you just don't know what's out there and you can't see anything, that's just kind of, that does it for me out there. I don't know.
we don't go by ourselves.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
And I do carry, but I carry because of what else is out there.
Yeah.
Not because of the Sasquatch themselves, but in almost every area we've gone to, we have found cat scat.
Mm-hmm.
And at certain times of season, the black bears, it's the males you have to worry about unless it's a female with cubs.
Right.
And we haven't run across that, but at certain times at the beginning of spring, the males are out looking for a mate, and the male black bears have been known to kill cubs just to mate with the female and stuff. So the males can get pretty vicious at that time. So yeah, that's the gun. My carry is basically for that.
Right.
And we do talk to the trees. People think we're talking to trees, but we're not. We're talking to the forest people and letting them know the gun isn't for you. We mean no harm.
Right.
We do believe that there are good and there are bad, just like in humans.
Mm-hmm.
There's good and bad in every animal in the world,
Right.
And we do believe there's probably bad Sasquatch out there, and the stories of humans disappearing and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not always sure that's Sasquatch.
It's not all Sasquatch. We do believe it's happened and stuff, but there are vicious ones. They prank. We get rocks thrown at us, the snowball and stuff, but then we thank them. We say thank you. And like I said, after I got hit with the snowball, I could swear I heard giggling coming from top of the hill. And we haven't been bum rushed or anything yet. So when that happens, it'll just be an experience.
Yeah. No, it's definitely an experience. It's so, like I mentioned, this gentleman by the name of Dark Waters, if you ever get a chance to go on his actual YouTube channel, he has a story on there as well about a group of gentlemen that I guess they used to do like mercenary work, and they were actually out in the jungle. I want to say like Venezuela, somewhere like that, and they actually had encounters with groups of Bigfoot. Like I think it was like 14, 15 of them. And they had to fight their way out to get back downriver. And it was a crazy, crazy encounter for them. I think only like 2 of them actually survived out of like 6 or 7 of them. But that whole story it's like an hour long, and it's just a crazy story. They were actually going to war with all these Bigfoot out there in the woods, and they had to kill a bunch of people, and they had to kill a bunch of Bigfoot to get out. It's just a crazy, crazy story, but I'd highly recommend his channel for that.
Watch that.
Yeah.
Dogman, Bigfoot, stuff like that. He actually speaks about it. It's crazy. A lot of stuff happening in Mississippi with the whole Dogman and Bigfoot thing. Them going to war with each other out there in the woods, stuff like that. It's just craziness. Actually, and it's weird. It's just happening in Mississippi. It's like this one area. I don't know what it is. I guess it's just because there was like a lot of Native Americans out there at that time, and they have a bunch of stories, and they're just kind of concentrated in this one area. But it's just like Bigfoot killing dogman killing Bigfoots, but you know, back and forth the whole time. And that's just one place I'll never go. I don't know what it is about Mississippi, but you know, there's a lot of stories that he has there about these kinds of things, and it's just concentrated there. And I don't know, you know, why, but it's definitely something to look at. It's crazy stories out there.
Yeah,
but
there are a lot of stories out there, and a lot of bad stories and stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of stories about hunters with that have had activity with them, being scared, and a lot of people come down with the PTSD over them.
Right.
And if you think the way that we think is that a lot of these stories that are coming out of the hunters that have interaction with them, and there's one thing in common there, and that's they're all carrying guns.
Right.
And we think that it could be Sasquatch telling them, hey, you're killing our food out here. You know, we don't like it, or you're shooting. You actually shot at my son or my daughter or something. We can't be sure, but we feel that has something to do with it. We feel they're real territorial.
Right.
And so if they're there in a certain area, and say, like here in Colorado, people are moving in and building homes up in the mountains everywhere.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they got bears moving in, mountain lions moving in. They're finding big barefoot footprints in their yard and stuff. Well, they were there first, and now you're building in their backyard. So you either learn to live with them or
don't come.
House down and move.
Yeah, they're definitely taking over their land out there. I mean, it's definitely something you have to learn to live with if you're going to go ahead and move out there. It's
exactly
because it's.
And that's what. Yeah,
sorry,
that's
what
we try to do. Is we try to get along. We try to get along with what's out there.
Right.
If it's not them, and then it's definitely something else. And bears don't have the articulation, I guess it's called, to build the stuff that's being built.
Right.
We don't have any. I've asked around, and the Boy Scouts don't go out and build these structures out in the middle of the forest where we're at. The First Nations don't go out there.
Right.
So yeah, we feel that. Well, we've seen a couple things, so we know that they're there.
Oh yeah.
Right.
But it's getting along with them is what we're trying to do to further. It's our journey to find the truth.
Also, I think a lot of it has to do with the way, you know, some areas are known for having, you know, really friendly, loving Sasquatches, and then others are known for, you know, they're always at war with something. I think it has to do a lot with their interaction with people throughout the last few centuries, because they're going to pass stories down just like we do.
Sure.
So if the Indians and the Sasquatch, you know, battled constantly, you know, over something, well, then of course their offspring and their, you know, generations following are going to look at people a lot different from the Native Americans who perhaps fished next to them.
Right.
And so I think, you know, that has a lot to do with how they act, you know, because we'll listen to stories from one gal in New Mexico, is she? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And she talks about how, you know, people fear them, and, you know, the Navajo stories of the Sasquatch are, you know, they're fighting over something. Where you go up to the Pacific Northwest, where they look at them as just another tribe. And, you know, they used to, you know, fish together and gather together. And the stories up there are much more friendly, and the attitudes, you know, between the two areas. So I think it's the way the different it's regional and how they're going to behave. And so far we've been lucky, and I don't think the Colorado indigenous tribes, you know, warred too much with Sasquatch, because they haven't like thrown anything at us to actually hurt us. I mean, if they wanted to get rid of us, I mean, we're two old people, and you only have so many shots in your gun and so many extra clips, you know. So, you know, if they wanted to get rid of us, we would have been gone.
They could have had us a long time ago.
Yeah. I mean, especially a couple weekends ago, this one could have had us. We came face to face with one.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And if he'd have wanted us gone, there would have been
Yeah, he
nothing
was
we
only
could
about
do.
50 feet away when I first spotted him.
Right.
And he was big, because
He
I
was
saw him
big.
from about the knees up, and that was about 6.5 feet.
Mm.
And from 50 feet away, and it was just at dusk. It was still light enough, but the sun was going down over the mountains. But he stepped out behind a big tree and just stood there, and he was kind of doing this number. And Ingrid stood up and she goes, "You see something, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah, right where you just heard something." And so she turned around and she goes, "Oh my God."
It was huge. It was massive. And if he'd have wanted to, he could have had us in 5 steps.
Yeah.
I mean, and there would have been nothing we could do about it because we had just taken the dog for a walk. So I didn't even have my bear spray with me, or camera.
We've never felt the need. We've never felt the need when we've had two full body sightings now, and we've had a camera, but we've never lifted the camera up to take a picture. That comes up here.
Yeah.
And it's never come. We're just so astonished at what we're looking at.
Yeah, your brain is still trying to figure out what it is you're seeing.
Yeah.
And your cognitive thinking is just it's gone. It's gone, you know.
Yeah, and Ingrid, she took a couple steps because we were on it was a little hill, and Ingrid walked to the edge of the hill, and she's trying to look a little closer to see if she could see facial expressions and stuff, because it was, like I said, it was standing behind a tree in the shadow, and it was at dusk, but the head was just huge, and the body was so wide that one of the shoulders was still behind the tree. But when she walked forward a little bit, it kind of leaned over like this, and then it stood straight up.
And once it stood straight up and got bigger, man, I stopped moving closer. I didn't back up, but we just stood there and just looked at it. And it looked at us. We had to have startled it, surprised it. It couldn't have known we were there. I mean, we just stared at each other for, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds. And then we got the idea that the visit was over, and we just said thank you, turned around and walked the dog back to the camper because it was on a camping trip.
Yeah. And we were with a lot of experienced researchers and stuff. And when we went back up there, because we always do reenactments also, and when we walked back up there was nothing down there, because we thought, okay, we saw a stump. And Ingrid thought maybe the motion of it was tree branches blowing in the wind.
Okay.
But I told her, I said, there was no wind at the time, though, dear.
There wasn't, and there was no stump. You always have to go back and look again, or it could have been anything. I mean, so if you don't try to debunk your own stuff, if everything's Sasquatch, nothing is Sasquatch. Right. So you try to disprove it with the same fervor that you want to believe it.
There was no stump down there.
There was no stump.
And we did find footprints down there on that whole, there was a boggy area down there too. And we found footprints going into the bog and coming out of the bog.
We always find footprints near water sources.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an experience that even the dog was spooked.
Yeah, the dog was definitely trying to get us out of there.
That's definitely that's definitely one of the signs that that there's actually something going on, because dogs, cats, they can kind of feel what's going on out there. Birds as well. Like if something's out there, you hear stories where like bugs and birds, they just go quiet, and that just means there's something moving into the area, because they're not making any noise either.
Exactly. That's one thing, we always keep our ears open to the wildlife too, because when everything goes silent, then we know that something's in the area that shouldn't be there, or is
bigger than everything else.
Yeah. And they know not to say anything either.
Exactly.
Yep.
So it's so these areas that you guys are in, is there, I mean, aside from yourselves and like other researchers that you guys take out there, is there like heavy foot traffic through there, like other humans, or is this just kind of an area that you guys it's just way out there?
Where we hike is away from the campgrounds.
Right.
Like yesterday when we went to the top of what we named Squatch Mountain,
right. Right.
It's like 2.5 miles to the top from where we parked the car. We walk down and end up the side of the mountain. It's 2.5 miles. So
Right.
there's not very much foot traffic up there at all. Now, our specialty is campsites.
Right.
We have found a lot of structure outside of campsites, like the teepees are within 1/2 mile from campsites.
But it's through rugged terrain. There's not like a campsite and then a trail. Here's the teepee.
Right. It's off the main trails. All of it's off the main trails.
But
And
there
it's
are always
usually
people around.
elevated.
Yeah.
But, and like I said, around campsites, dispersed campsites mostly. And one of our theories is that they're mimicking the campers with some of the stuff that we're finding, like the lean-tos and stuff.
Right.
And the fake fire pits that we find. There's no scorching. These things have never had a fire in them at all. And we kind of have a feeling that they're mimicking the campers for some reason.
But yeah, there's really no, we're not young and healthy enough to actually get out to the way back part of the Rockies where there haven't been people, except for, young explorers, we're going to stick close to where we're within, a 3-hour hike of the car,
Right.
So we're going to, there's enough encroachment into that area with people hiking and camping that you're not going to get completely away from it unless you're, going on a 3-day hike, and that's 3 days out and 3 days back.
Sure.
So yeah, there's always people around, but not exactly where we are. If that makes any sense. Was I clear on that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
That's going to draw them in too. We feel that they come in to watch the campers.
Like we're their entertainment.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they laugh at us.
They have
Yeah,
to.
I'm sure.
I would.
Some of these crazy humans they're not here.
And I think they like the smells of the cooking too.
Yeah, I'm sure.
They eat for taste, I'm sure, just as well as nutrition, just like people do.
Right.
So that smells good.
And it's so out in these areas you mentioned before that you hear stories of people missing out there. Is there like a bunch of stories in that area, or is it just kind of spread out throughout the Rockies as well?
It's pretty much spread out.
Right.
We are south. One of the biggest areas of missing people in Colorado is Rocky Mountain National Park.
Right.
And that's up farther north of us. And we're down in basically central Colorado. There have been missing hunters come up down there. But we're not going to blame it on Sasquatch, because it could have been a mountain lion. It could have been fallen off of a cliff or something.
Right.
But another thing is that in a lot of the cases where people come up missing is also pretty big in paranormal, like UFO activity and stuff.
Right.
Northwestern Colorado is really known for UFOs and this and that. And same with Rocky Mountain National Park. There's been a lot of UFO sightings. So we don't
think it's so much Sasquatch as possibly something else.
Right.
If you believe in, the UFOs coming down and stealing people out of their beds, perhaps they're coming down and stealing one hunter out of 5,
Right.
in a tree stand, and doing experiments. And sometimes they give them back and sometimes they don't. I mean, and then a lot of times, where you hear that, that after 3 days of extensive search, they find,
Like
their
the shoes.
clothes, all like
Yeah.
their shoes, right there off the side of a trail with all of their stuff. Okay, we think that that's Sasquatch putting their stuff back, saying, we didn't take it, but here's what we found of them.
Right.
That's kind of where we are with that. If any, but I don't think it's Sasquatch might steal 1 or 2 people for a day or 2 to play with them, but I think he gives them back.
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully.
Yeah, like the little boy in, I believe it was Pennsylvania, said that he was missing and he spent time with bears. A bear took him in and took care of him.
Right. Yeah.
And returned him.
Yeah,
Okay.
right in the middle of this whole search area. Okay, a bear is going to take care of a child for a few days and then put him back where has already been searched. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah. I remember
You
hearing
know?
that story. That was so like it. So it's those stories that I'm sure you're familiar with David Paulides as well. So he has those stories as well. And I'm actually following some of the stories that he has out lately. I think there's about 3 or 4 missing people that he's actually tracking right now, which we're very interested in as well. But yeah, that would seem to be. I mean, what else could it be? I mean, I can't imagine that it would be any kind of animal, like a bear or things like that would take somebody, take care of them, feed them or whatever, and then bring them back right in the middle of where everybody's at. Like, say they're doing a search in that area, and then they just happen to find the kid like there.
Exactly.
That's just kind of like that just would never happen if you were with a bear. You would hear the bear, you could smell the bear,
Yeah.
things like that. It's just things that absolutely make no sense whatsoever. That's it's like, so I wouldn't say as well that the Bigfoot would be taking people. Maybe here and there they they happen to come across a hunter that's trying to shoot at them for whatever reason, and they're aware of what a gun is, I'm sure, because they've probably been shot at throughout history over and over again. So maybe they run into a hunter that shoots at them, and they take offense, and things happen, obviously. But for the most part, I mean, I couldn't see a Bigfoot taking somebody and then just not bringing them back for for whatever reason. But I mean, weirder things have happened out there. I'm sure maybe once in a while here and there, but yeah, I wouldn't.
I don't think it's David Paulides missing
Right.
411 comment. Seriously, I don't.
Yeah.
A lot of it could be just people getting lost.
Yeah.
And, disoriented for whatever reason. Lack of water can make you do strange things.
Sure.
Lack of sleep can make you, do strange things, and also, the UFOs can make you do strange, so I don't think it's Sasquatch, and he has never come out and said he believes it's Sasquatch.
No, yeah.
He has never come out and blamed Sasquatch by name. So
Sure. Yeah, and it's definitely following. I mean, he has his other research that he has where they're actually looking for Bigfoot as well, which is great. They made some breakthroughs with that as well. So I'm curious to see what that leads to. But that's definitely, he's definitely never mentioned Bigfoot in anything. But it's just interesting to think, because you guys speak about in some areas that they're more evil than others, like in more areas, things like that. So it's probably just a case of which part of the country you're in, obviously. But in that, that neck of the woods that you guys are in, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's anything nefarious going on with them. So I wouldn't put them on the list of suspects out there.
They're not the first thing I would look at. I mean, there's also mean, bad people out in the woods.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and they take people.
Yeah.
They do some, so I would look there before I would look at Sasquatch. I mean, but
and the different, like I said, it's a lot of it's regional also.
Yeah.
And there's supposedly 10 different types of Bigfoot, and I know that 2 of them, from my research, 2 to 3 of them are pretty vicious, and those come basically more east and north, like Michigan, Minnesota, and there are some like Louisiana and Arkansas.
Sure.
That are pretty wicked. I wouldn't want to run into them by myself at nighttime.
Yeah.
But we've never been threatened here. I'll leave it at that. And I'm more afraid of the mountain lions than I am of the Sasquatch.
Sure.
And there's no proof that they still actually exist, except for us researchers that are out and claim that, well, I've seen 2 of them now. Mm-hmm. And they have never done it. They've never tried to harm me.
Sure.
Ingrid has seen 3 of them now, and she's still sitting here. So.
Yeah.
And if they wanted to take us out at any point, I mean, they could have. I mean, you can't say I got away from it. Well, are you sure you got away, or he just let you go?
Let you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely just let
He'd
you
have
go.
wanted you. He'd have had you.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Sort of like, it's sort of like a mountain lion. You don't know one's going to attack you until he's already on your
It's on
back.
you. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so you mentioned that there's no, like other kind of proof besides, you guys going out there and doing that work of, for yourselves. But do you guys kind of lean more towards Bigfoot, Sasquatch being kind of like the missing link between humans, or did they come from like another, like in space, like other people say, that they're actually aliens as well? Where do you guys kind of fall on that?
We actually we kind of differ in our beliefs.
Yeah.
We each have a different opinion on this, so I'll let Tony go first.
We do. Both of us do believe they are flesh and blood.
Okay.
My thinking is that they're people, right, in my opinion, and they've come down from biblical times on down.
Right.
I've studied the book of Enoch a little bit, and on the other side, I've studied the lost book of Enki, mm-hmm, which is the ancient astronaut side, right, with the Anunnaki, and then on the Enoch side, the Nephilim.
Right.
If you study both, at least to me, they're the exact same book. It's just interpretation and belief. And
right.
I honestly feel that they've come down through the times, and they've been said to come back after the flood and stuff, and they're still here just like us. We're still here from the biblical times, and they just happen to survive just like the humans. Right. And since they are, through different DNA testing, they are like 97% human and 3%
other
something,
yeah,
not of this earth, not of this world. And could that be angelic, or could it be astronomical, or out of this, not from this earth?
Right.
We don't know, because we just don't know.
There's nothing to put up against you.
yeah, that's my thinking anyway.
Right.
So
right.
I lean towards the Nephilim, biblical sense of it.
Right.
And I think they are an animal. A lot of the human, like the Erickson Project, they got DNA. I don't know if you've heard of Dennis Fowl and the whole Pancake House and all that. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Since they got DNA, the human DNA could be, maybe thousands of years ago, there was some crossbreeding, and, the humans went one way through time, and the Bigfoot Sasquatch went another way, and they're another animal in the woods.
Right.
They're incredibly intelligent. I think they can do things with their brains that people forgot how to do, because it wasn't, through a lot of different things, like religion and social norms and constrictions. There's a lot of things that we have forgotten how to do that they have practiced and honed through the years. So I think they're another animal in the woods, but they're highly intelligent and highly advanced for what we think of animals in the woods. So I wouldn't compare them to a bear or a deer or a mouse
or an ape.
I don't think they're anywhere in the ape family whatsoever, any more than we are. I mean, they're as ape as we are.
Right.
But I don't see the biblical connection the way Tony does. I could see how it could exist.
Right.
But I'm firmly on the fence. But they're definitely a flesh and blood creature that can be killed. I don't think they live forever. I don't think they travel through 29 different dimensions, and they're here today and they come back last Thursday, or, they're here today and come back next Wednesday, but I'm not in that camp at all.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely, I mean, I only ask because it's, nobody ever seems to find like any kind of remains, like, after they die, maybe they just kind of take them away, or, they hide the bodies, or they bury them.
They bury them and they put a friend of ours, Tom Cantrell, up in the Pacific Northwest, he's written several books, and his website is Tom Cantrell, THOM. He says he has spent lots of time with them, and he has done extensive research on them. Right. He believes that they are buried and then huge boulders placed on top of them.
As a monument.
As a monument. And so so if they bury their dead and their grave markers are a huge tree or a huge boulder, that's not what we're looking for.
Yeah. Even if you knew where to look, there's no way to get underneath it anyways.
Yeah, I mean, it'd take heavy equipment. I mean, if you get 20 of these things together, they can move a pretty big rock.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I'm kind of, leaning towards his idea of where the bodies are, and also actually how many full bear carcasses have been found. How many full elk carcasses have been found? I mean, we know they're out there. We know they exist. Why aren't we finding their bodies everywhere?
Sure. Yeah, even if they died out in the middle of nowhere, who's going to find them out there? It's, even if they didn't bury them, they're just going to be out there. Other animals are going to come by, and then they're just going to take pieces of it, and that's it.
Yeah.
No one's going to know.
Their cemetery could be in a cave.
Yeah.
That. I mean, there are gold mines and different kind of mines scattered throughout this whole state. Right. All along the Rocky Mountains, from New Mexico to Canada and stuff, and the cave systems.
All the natural cave systems around the world. I mean, there could be anything down there, and there aren't that many splunkers around to find them.
Yeah.
I'm not going down there.
I'm not going down there.
I don't think anybody wants to go down there.
I'm happy with my life above ground.
Splunkers, those guys are crazy, and I would never do anything like that.
Yeah, you might run across a Sasquatch graveyard, and I don't think I'd want to come across the night guardsman.
No, it's definitely. No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. It's creepy just to think about. I mean, just imagine maybe you come across one and you kind of take a bone out of the graveyard or something, and then they come after you for just to get it back. I mean,
then you deserve it. If you take anything out of a graveyard, you deserve what's coming to you, man.
There's stories of ghosts even doing that.
Yeah. And you take something out of a Native American, burial ground. I mean, you're going to have bad luck for the next 50 years. I mean, you can't gift enough tobacco to get that voodoo off you.
Yeah.
We respect the dead, and we'll leave it at that. We don't take nothing from their front yard, backyard, or
we wouldn't even take a little rock home. It's just not going to happen.
No,
we know safe. We've been there. We don't need proof. Yeah.
Especially if you guys keep going back every weekend, so they'll know.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we do keep going back to the same areas, and we actually had what we thought was activity with a family clan, right, in one of these areas, and we were leaving gifts, and we'd go back the next week and the gifts were gone, and then we'd go back another week, and then we find one of the gifts at another structure, and we'd pick it up and leave more gifts at the one site. So there were gifts being moved around and returned, and as the area was changing, it was just, we were getting the feeling. And then Ingrid did see a head pop up over a rock from a rock outcropping right above this one teepee where our gifting site was. And so, and we get hear the mumbling, the samurai chatter coming from the hillside, and we got grunts and groans, but nothing was ever put us into fear. It was always welcoming. That's what it was. It was welcoming.
One of the grunts was so loud and authoritative that every bird in the forest stopped the second
the whole forest went quiet.
Yeah. And it wasn't a bear grunt. You've heard bear grunts. I've heard bear grunts. It wasn't a bear grunt. It was, I don't even think I could have words to describe what, there's nothing to compare it to.
Well, it wasn't a fearful grunt though.
Yeah.
It made us feel welcome and like it thanked us.
It was more of a than a
Oh, okay, yeah. So you mentioned gifts. I mean, what kind of gifts? Like fruit, food, or did you guys
Runs
leave me
the
out there?
gamut.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been trying all sorts of different things. When our first set of gifts was a rock. We found a piece of quartz up there, really nice quartz. So we left it. A piece of obsidian that Ingrid had found, black, shiny rock. And then we had left, I took some bootlaces, some long bootlaces, because I wanted to do an experiment.
Right.
We had heard about them using rope and stuff for lashing in their structures and stuff.
And they like to braid horses' manes and tails, but that's another story.
Yeah. And we took some granola bars and stuff. I did take a Snickers, but it didn't last. And we really don't like the idea of leaving them sugar.
Right.
But the granola bars, they ended up being gone, huh?
And the cantaloupe. We've left cantaloupe. That, yeah, you don't even find a rind left. But animal, it's, yeah, I don't know. But yeah.
Well, the first
we've left apples too.
And apples, yeah. But they were gone. That
Yeah.
could have been a deer though, or something.
Birds too.
But
yeah.
the cantaloupe, the first cantaloupe that we found that was touched up there, we just happened to walk up on, and there was a cantaloupe there. And as we were walking up, we were actually coming down the side of the mountain and heard a grunt from down below.
Mm-hmm.
And then we heard like a groan, and then all of a sudden something running off as we were getting closer. So I saw the cantaloupe on the ground, and I heard something running off to the side of us. So I kind of went off over that direction, ran up, and I saw shoulders and the head going over a hill. And we sat and listened, and it doubled back around to where we just came down the mountain and back up into the rock outcropping up above. Well, this cantaloupe was down right next to the teepee that we sat and watched being made. And the cantaloupe was whole, and it had a hole on the top that was probably 3 inches round, but then there was a finger hole in the side of it. And there was fingerprints inside of it to where it was like it would push in, and it was picking the cantaloupe out, and then it would dig it out through the hole.
That's crazy.
And yeah, it was nuts. And so we left that cantaloupe there, and the next week we took another one, and the first cantaloupe was gone. That cantaloupe was gone the next week when we went back. Not a rind, like she said, there wasn't a seed, not a rind, nothing left. And we left a cantaloupe there, and that was when we went back. That's when the granola bars were gone, the cantaloupe was gone. And Ingrid would leave like her rocks, and then she would take sticks and make little glyphs around the rocks. And so the granola bars were gone. 2 of the shoestrings were gone. And we found, like I said, we found one of the shoestrings down at another structure that we always stopped and checked out. But then the sticks, the rocks would be moved, and the sticks would be moved into a different kind of a glyph.
So not just kicked, but I mean, they were in another
arranged.
Yeah,
Place,
arranged
yeah.
in a definitive pattern. So
Just to let you guys know that they were there and they saw it.
That's what we think, and that's what we're going by.
Yeah.
Because one time she left rocks inside of a glyph of a triangle.
Right.
Well, a triangle in Native American sign language meant home.
Okay.
And so she left them in a triangle. And when we went back, the rocks had been removed, and there was a pine cone left there, and the sticks, one of the sticks had been removed, and the other 2 sticks were in an X. An X in Native American symbolism meant welcome or friendship.
Oh, awesome.
And so that's where we went from there. We just kept doing it. And then, unfortunately, the place kind of went
dead.
vacant.
Very quiet, yeah.
And we haven't had any more interaction there. So we don't know if they've moved on or moved over to the new spot where we're at now.
or if that place just got too busy with people, or because it is much closer to a campground than our normal sites.
Right.
And so, you know, they could have decided that this is too busy. Let's go somewhere else. Or they might visit it, you know, we just might miss them, you know. They might be off visiting grandma the weekend we're there or something. But we've also left like balls of yarn, and I leave variegated yarn in it, which is in a pattern. So you can tell by, you know, just pulling out, you know, more how much was taken.
Right.
You know, you can, and so like one piece of yarn, like it was broken and a piece of yarn was left there. But then I could determine that beyond that piece of yarn left there, another 7 feet was gone. Mm. So they had taken part of it.
Right.
And so, you know, I like to leave balls of yarn because I figure if nothing else, they can play catch with it and leave it a ball, or they can unwind it and, you know, use it like however they want, or just, you know, rip off pieces and, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, use it for whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever they want. I've given it. It's not my business what they do with it.
Yeah. That's crazy. No, yeah. Man, it's definitely like I mentioned, I would definitely like to see one, you know, maybe one day, but I would never go searching for them. But I mean, you guys mentioned that you had seen maybe twice and yourself 3 times, you know, besides that one time that you guys had seen them together, you know, can you let us hear like the other stories that you guys had about that?
Yeah.
Seeing the other times?
One day we were out there and we were walking, bushwhacking it through, and ventured up to this one area, and there was a big rock outcropping. Most of our sightings are around rock outcroppings.
And the Rocky Mountains are called Rockies for a reason. They're made out of rocks, and the area we're in, these are granite mountains. So rock outcroppings are very common. It's not your typical rolling hills of Tennessee. Yeah, there's a lot of granite and quartz.
Yeah. So we were bushwhacking it through, and all of a sudden we come to this area, this little round group of trees, and there was a fence.
Right.
There was trees that were built up into a fence blocking us out of this area. We couldn't go around because that's how big the fence was. We had to walk back down the trail and then down and then around, or crash through the fence. And what was funny is that right in the center where we were standing in the fence was an X built into the fence.
Okay.
And it was weird. And all of a sudden I looked up. Ingrid was about 25 feet behind me, and Connie was with us that day, and she was about 25 feet farther back down. And I'm looking at this fence, and I turned around and said, Ingrid, look at this fence. And she was filming something else. All of a sudden I looked up towards the rocks because I heard a shuffling, and there was a rock cliff, a rock face, and there was an aspen probably about 8 inches round going up. And I saw something standing. It was bipedal, and it was standing behind this tree, and it would peek out like this, and when the head would come out on one side, the butt would stick out from the other side of the tree. And I started kind of chuckling to myself, and all of a sudden it would stand up and try to hide.
Yeah.
And I would lean over like this, and it would peek out again, and the head would come out and the butt would come out. And I'm sitting there and I'm moving around, and it would peek out one side of the tree, and then I was playing peekaboo with a Sasquatch. That's all I could think in my head. And then, about 15 minutes.
I don't know how long.
And I'm amazed at what I'm seeing. Finally, I turned around to Ingrid and I said, come up here. And I didn't tell her where to look. I just said, look up there and tell me what you see. And so she just looked straight up in the exact place. She goes, it's moving. And I said, where at? She goes, behind that tree. I said, bingo.
Yeah.
And so she sat there for about another 5 to 10 minutes, and we're just sitting there watching, and it's just
playing peekaboo.
It was only about 5.5 feet tall, so we figured it was a juvenile. And finally, I told her, I said, and I'm talking to it. You know, I'm trying to calm it down. You know, we don't mean no harm. We're here with respect. We're your friends and this and that, and just trying to general conversation with a bipedal being that was dark colored, hairy, no clothes on, you know.
Yeah.
And I could see the face, you know, I saw the brow and the eyes, and the ears were down lower and stuff. And this one didn't look anything like the one we saw a couple of weeks ago. This one was thinner, and that's why we think it was a juvenile and stuff. And I told Ingrid, we were about 100 feet away, 80 feet away, till I got to get closer. I got to get a better look.
I'm going in.
I stepped over the fence, over the edge. I didn't crash through and bust it all up. I stepped over it and stuff. And I told her when I left, I said, don't take your eyes off of that.
Yeah.
I started up towards it. I got halfway, and it was pretty steep. And I'm going, I was gasping for air. And I looked up. I stopped and looked up, and it was gone. And I turned back around to Ingrid. I said, where'd it go? She says, I don't know. I was too worried about you, so I was watching you.
He wasn't stepping over anything. He was tripping over stuff. He was making noise.
Well, I wasn't trying to be quiet.
Well, no, it knew you were coming, but I was watching him, and it disappeared.
So we get up there to the tree, and it was the only tree there for a few feet. And it was about 3 feet away from the rock face.
Right.
And the only way that it could have gotten away is to go one way or the other and end up the rocks. And so we get up there, and right there, right behind the tree, there was footprints and
shuffling
in the dirt. There was no pine needles there like was around the area.
Right.
This was all dirt, cleaned off, shuffled away and stuff, and we haven't seen it since.
No.
we've looked and we've talked and stuff, and we've heard it up in the rocks, or we've heard something, and we've seen heads between trees up there in basically the same area.
Right.
So we feel it's still there. And probably with its mother and the rest of the clan on that one hillside.
Yeah. And he just knows he can't hide behind an 8-inch aspen anymore.
Yeah.
we're always hearing whistles coming from there, and wood knocks and grumbling, what I call the Barney Rubble grumble. And it's just it's a low tone, but we're just mumble.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's definitely yeah, I mean, even by this time, maybe it's grown a lot bigger. I mean, have you seen like a lot of juveniles more than adults, or is it kind of more adult than anything else?
Well, I think the one we saw 2 weekends ago when we were camping was definitely an adult. This thing would put the fear of God in anything.
Right.
That had to be an adult male. The peekaboo, yeah, the peekaboo, but and 4 feet wide. I'm not kidding. This sucker was huge.
We call them.
Yeah, and a big head, no neck. Yeah. There wasn't a conical shape to the head though. It wasn't, Yeah, I mean, your peekaboo buddy was definitely a juvenile. The one we saw at Rock Hill, that I don't know about, but the one I saw running across the rock face, I would say was a female. There were certain anatomical parts that were bouncing in ways that only females do.
The same day as the peekaboo. Side of the valley. Was down below us. Happened to look over and saw something scale beside it.
It was a steep
70 degree, 65, 70 degree, and she was trying to loud, but she was trying to signal me. Well, Ingrid saw her and just happened to look over there and saw it partially.
Mm.
They both told me what they saw. Because I want to do. I was in the mistake. God.
He takes off up this hill that's at like a 70-degree angle. You have to grab trees to pull you up. Well, not all the trees are firmly rooted.
Right.
Okay, you're gonna fall back sometimes. And then there was, oh Lord, I think it took us a half an hour to get to the top. No wonder there was nothing there when we got there. He's already gone down there having dinner.
He was
I mean, we did find sign that something big went through there. There were snapped off. You know, you could tell by the sign. There was, twigs. There was, tree limbs snapped off. Pretty high up. And breaks and things. There's obviously something had been through there.
Yeah.
I did not get a good enough look at it to say for sure what it was. Connie's the one that got the best visual on it. But I saw something moving up
and
there
we feel
fast.
that it was part of the clan that we had interaction with the year before over at the 1TV. So I won't chase them up a hill like that.
Not anymore. The next time,
much.
you're good.
And I'm not really chasing them. I'm following them, trying to get them look.
Yeah.
He was already at the top of the hill before you took off.
He was in the next county.
Yeah. Man. And do they, besides like footprints and things like that, do they leave like hair or anything else that, you guys have seen out there?
We haven't found any hair yet. We do keep looking, and I do carry the latex gloves and an envelope and tweezers to collect. But we really haven't looked that hard.
Hair just isn't something we think to look for.
Yeah.
We're trying to interpret, where they live, how they live, the meanings of the things we find, what their patterns are. If we see, footprints, we try to figure out where they were going, and we're trying to learn about them. I don't think we need to prove they exist, because we already know they do. And there's been a lot of proof and stories throughout the years. So we're more trying to learn about them than prove them.
Sure.
And if we get to actually get to know one,
or
a clan, we don't have to see them face to face, but just interact like we did at the one teepee.
Right.
Exchange gifts. We would like to receive something of theirs back. Usually it's just something that they took of ours and then returned or something like that. We would like to get something personal back from them. It hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
But
it has happened for others, and but it takes years to build up that kind of a rapport. I figured they've been burned and tricked enough by people throughout the centuries that they're pretty slow with their trust.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, exactly.
So, we're more trying to learn about them and what they do and why they do it. And right now, we can only apply our experience to what we find.
Sure.
My idea that the teepees could be spiritual could be completely off the wall and have nothing to do with it, because I'm applying my experience to what it is.
Sure.
So we're just trying to learn.
We're not making any money. We don't want any money for what we're doing. Our channel is non-monetized.
Sure.
We don't sell our t-shirts and stuff to help. Everything comes out of our own pocket. And we've been kind of bashed for what we're doing.
Yeah, I bet.
There are some people out there say that we're nuts for what we're doing, and you don't have to do it because there's already proof you're going to get hurt. We don't feel that way. Hey, if we get hurt, at least we're getting hurt doing something we enjoy.
Yeah.
We both look at.
Yeah.
Even my kid, I've got a son that lives right down there by you at Fort Worth. And every time Ingrid posts up on Facebook, she calls Nate. She goes, "You know what your parents are doing now?"
I can bet.
They know we're out having fun. And if we were to get a picture of one up close and stuff, I don't think we would share it.
I don't think we'd talk about it at all.
Yeah.
talk about it with certain people, but we wouldn't let it out into the news or anything else. Because if we did that, and then
It's too much
that
attention.
whole area, exactly, too much attention, that whole area would be swamped. And we've heard too many bad stories about people that have done that.
I mean, look at what the Patterson Gimlin film. It's, you know, next to the JFK assassination, it's the most dissected piece of film, and you still got people who swear it's a suit.
Yeah.
You know.
And people that are bashing Mr. Gimlin for
Yeah, we don't want to get into that.
for different stuff, but we don't want that. And we're just, our channel is to exchange information and stuff with other researchers. And there's bad people out there that will come on. Even you're going to find out on your channel, people are going to come on and say, "Oh, that's garbage. That's not true," or
Yep.
kind of a dummy are you? And
You
that's not
actually
real.
listened to that clob trot for
Yeah.
that long, and you pretended like they were serious people. Yeah.
Yeah.
We just
Right.
say, we give them a like and
Move
send them down the
along.
road.
Yeah. See you guys there.
Yeah, you know, it's the YouTube channel and everything is just our journey of what we're learning. You know, we figure we're taking you along. We don't know any more than you did when we started.
Right.
You know, so learn with us. You know, and some of our viewers, they can't get out of the house. You know,
Yeah.
they're
Exactly.
infirm, and this is their way of getting to hike through the mountains. And if that's why they're there, you know, that's wonderful.
That's great. We like helping people that can't get out on their own and stuff. They thank us for it, and that kind of makes us feel good too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, especially nowadays when everyone's stuck at home and nothing to do really. So
Exactly.
it's getting even worse now. So yeah, I mean, we're shutting down again here in Dallas. You know, even throughout all of Texas, they're doing it again. So it's definitely not going to hold over well for a lot of us here. But I guess there's not much else we can do about it for right now.
Nope, you're pretty much stuck.
Yeah, we've been this way for a while, but we'll get better, and then everybody will get back out into the woods and stuff. So that'll be good. But I mean, so you guys were out there yesterday. I mean, you have any plans for next weekend or the weekend after again? You guys will be out there again?
Well, next weekend we're going to go out again and check our gifting area. The weekend after that, we're going to Montana.
Okay.
Because that is the only state in the union that legally should exist. I love Montana. I know I'm talking to a Texan, and I said that on purpose because I knew he was a Texan.
This is the greatest country in the world.
Okay?
Texas.
Texas is a
Texas
wonderful,
is the greatest country
great
in the world.
country. Montana is the state with which I am in love. I have respect for other states and admiration, but with Montana, it is love.
I've always wanted to go to Montana. It's just, you know, because it's so open. It's a lot of area out there. I really want to see the stars at night. I mean, here in Dallas, you don't get to see the stars because, you know, of all light pollution, things like that. But I mean, Montana is probably the only other state that I would visit, not live in, but I would visit. Just, you know.
Oh, if you ever lived there, you wouldn't want to leave. You wouldn't. I only left because Tony lived in Denver, Colorado, and he couldn't earn a living in Montana.
It's all your fault.
Yeah. There's no manufacturing in Montana. There is in Colorado. Yeah. So, but we're retired. So we go back there twice a year. But yeah, next weekend we're going to go back and check our gifting area.
And to check for more footprints.
Because we did find some yesterday. Yeah. And if you watch our video, you will see them. Yeah. It'll be posted later today.
Yeah, we found a trackway, and we found like a handprint, looked like knuckles, right next to a footprint. So
it's like he went down into a 3-point stance or something. It was kind of cool looking.
Squatting.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, I'll definitely be looking out for that video and see what's going on out there.
It's in the cooker now.
Yeah.
Tonight.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'll definitely looking out for that one. But Tony and Ingrid, I really appreciate you guys' time. I'll definitely be glued to you guys' YouTube channel. I've already watched all your videos from the start. Like in 2 days, I started watching all of them. I'll definitely be looking for this new one. I'm always interested in Bigfoot, you know, Sasquatch, anything. So that's definitely a big interest of mine. But just let everybody know where they can find you again one more time.
YouTube channel Sasquatch Journey, Facebook group and page Sasquatch Journey, Twitter Sasquatch Journey 1. or just search Sasquatch Journey. I'm pretty sure the little logo will pop up.
Right. No, yeah, it's definitely there.
So
Yeah.
we don't have a web page. We don't see any need for a web page because we're
Yeah.
not selling anything, or
Yeah.
everything you
Yeah.
need to know about us will be on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube.
Yeah, everybody's on those, so they'll definitely find you guys there. Yeah, guys, everybody, you can go ahead and follow them on their social media, us as well, here on Twitter at Defender Podcast, Instagram at Truth Defender Podcast. And like I mentioned before, if you guys want to reach out to us through email, that's thetruthDefender1776@gmail.com. You guys can go ahead and send us any kind of guests or topic of requests. We'll go ahead and try and get those guys out for you. But like I said, Tony and Ingrid, I really appreciate you guys' time. You guys stay safe out there. Make sure you guys let us know what's going on with you guys out there in the woods. We'll definitely be following closely, and I really appreciate you guys.
Thank you, bud. If you're ever in Denver, let us know.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I'll be stopping by. We'll try and get out there and maybe try to find something for ourselves as well. But I really appreciate you guys' time. You guys stay safe, stay healthy as well. And we'll be talking to you again soon.
Great. Thanks a lot. You have a great afternoon.
You too, man. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Bye.
Bye-bye.